here yet.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? Can you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, can you see my screen okay with the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Want me to pull up the minutes or?
Okay, we'll start the meeting. We've got a quorum, full table. And anybody need to look at the minutes? Or have you already looked at them? Okay, yeah, bring them up. Any changes for the minutes, or is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, Kim moves to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Amy moves to second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So everything we have is actually on both sides here?
No, I have one more additional request. So I'll just lay out my request for the modifications to the agenda. Item number 3, Arrowwood 3rd edition. I guess there's some details that we need to button up. I asked that it just be tabled until May 25th, and asked that I get a public hearing on that date instead of tonight. And then on the back, other items, I've had requests to add a discussion on the future land use map, accessory structures, and I have some community development updates
Okay,
regarding the new zoning ordinance.
okay. So, we're tabling number 3, is that? We're just gonna table number 3, or just,
For May 25th.
Yeah, so as you see, I have the 4th item tabled for May 25th. It got public notice. And then on number 3, I'm asking that that be continued as well.
okay. So with that change for number 3, we have a motion to accept the agenda.
I make a motion.
Kim moves to accept the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Julie seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Go for it, Barry.
Okay. Okay, so for the first item, what you have before you is an application for a conditional use permit from EAV Family Holdings, represented by Matt Bosch, for a property located at 6415 100th Avenue. So this is County Road 17 right here. This is 100th Avenue, so it's in the northeast quadrant. And they submitted a conditional use permit application to request permission to allow for a contractor shop and a contractor yard. The applicant is proposing to construct a commercial office building, which would be located right here, with a 30 by 32 shop in the back. This would accommodate a siding company in the back. Siding materials would be stored where light bending would occur. And they also stated that they would like to park a couple of company trailers in the back where they would request a contractor yard of 2,998 square feet. So these proposed land use activities are not permitted by right in the G3 General Commercial Zoning District, but they are allowed as conditional uses in this zoning district. So when staff reviewed this application, we felt that it met the intent of the future land use map where it designates this area as industrial, and it recommends uses such as light manufacturing, contract yards, and offices. When staff reviewed all of the conditional use permit criteria, we didn't think that the public health and safety or comfort would be jeopardized by this use because it would be regulated by the conditions proposed in the conditional use permit. It would regulate aesthetics. It would also regulate for screening, so we didn't feel that it would substantially impair or diminish any abutting properties. We also felt that it fit in with the normal and orderly development of this area. These proposed uses are pretty consistent with what already exists. If you were to go down the frontage road west, there's an existing cabinet office and shop. And in terms of access, we felt that this would be addressed during the building permit application process where it's required by the zoning ordinance. So what we did is we put together these conditions for approval. We basically just, in the first one, we state that it's got to be kept clean. You can't have foul odors. In terms of off-street parking, it has to be paved or have a concrete surface. All operational activity and storage needs to be screened. The contractor shop and the contractor land uses are permitted only if an office building exists on site prior to. So if they're building them in tandem, those uses would be allowed. And then that the contractor yard be permitted only if screening requirements of the zoning ordinance are met, and that any expansion of the square footage of the shop building or yard area would require an additional conditional use permit. So it'd have to come before the planning commission and the city council again. And then the last one, we just stated that if this land use were to cease, or there was no professional office use for more than 6 months, then that would rescind the conditional use permit. Staff sent out notice. Staff didn't receive any comments. We spoke with the applicant. They agreed to these conditions, and therefore staff recommends approval as shown on the screen before you.
Okay, opening up the public hearing for this then. Is anybody here for this?
I'm Adam with All Star Construction.
Sir?
And so we are planning, I appreciate working with everybody there, it's been great to work with so far. We are planning to build a really nice looking building. It's not gonna be a shop style building. We are the kind of company that doesn't have massive equipment and things like that laying on our yard. So the extent of anything in our yard would be a trailer here or there overnight while it's waiting to go to the next job site.
Okay. Is there anybody else here for the public hearing? Okay. Closing the public hearing, you can still talk. Okay.
That's all, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has about it.
Questions?
Just like to see like a rendering or a color, I mean, that's a rendering, but I mean, what the colors and stuff are gonna be, if you have something.
I would advise the planning commission that this is not a site plan review. We're just reviewing the
Yes.
land use and whether we want to permit it on that site or not.
Yeah.
I'll see that.
Yeah. Have we seen this for design review?
No, the CUP would have to be approved by the city
No,
council.
the only reason I'm asking is, it seems like I've seen this someplace,
Okay.
but I have no idea where anymore.
No, you only see this during the building permit application process.
Okay.
So the basis of design of this building was along the right of the north here.
Okay.
But ours
Any other questions about the conditional use permit? Can we have a motion concerning the conditional use permit?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Kim moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug moves to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Goes to city council.
Thank you.
Is it at the next meeting?
Correct, yep, next
Okay.
Monday.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Next one.
Okay, the second application is pretty similar to the first, so not to get anybody confused, but this is the abutting property to the east, and they have the same request.
Yeah, when I was looking at the packet,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right next door.
So this application was submitted by Outdoor Concepts with their representative Blake Brogan. So this would be located at 6405 100th Avenue South, same location in the northeast quadrant of County Road 17, 100th Avenue South. With a conditional use permit request to allow for a contractor shop and contractor yard. Their proposed use is to construct a commercial office building and a shop to accommodate a concrete company. This would be the 70 by 116 foot shop in the back where material preparation, truck cleaning, and storage of vehicles with sensitive electronics would take place. In addition, the applicant proposes to store lumber, pickup trucks, and contractor trailers outside of the building in this proposed contractor yard area of about 20,475 square feet. So once again, these land uses aren't permitted by right in the G3 General Commercial Zoning District, but they are allowed by conditional use. Once again, future land use map, you've already heard that information. When staff reviewed the application, we basically came to the same conclusion. We listed out the same conditions as the first application that you just saw. We felt that the conditions laid out would regulate the aesthetics, regulate screening, and then would regulate site-specific items so that conditional land use is controlled and would deter any adverse effects to any abutting properties. As same as the first application, public notice, the property owner letters were sent out, staff didn't receive any comments, and the conditions laid out are the same as the first, and staff recommends approval as shown on the screen.
Okay, opening up the public hearing for this conditional use permit. Anybody here for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're outdoor.
Okay. Questions?
What is the fencing? What type of fence and how high?
Chain link, right now it's gonna be chain link 6 feet, and then we'll probably end up slotting it, so you can't see through it.
So I'd like to advise the planning commission, the conditions do state that they have to provide screening as stated in the zoning ordinance, but if you do want to go above and beyond, you're more than welcome to state what that would look like and what those specific requirements would be.
Same thing with the gravel storage yard. Is gravel going to be allowed out there along that frontage?
Gravel is allowed in the storage area, but not on access drives or off-street parking spaces.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back about, on there it shows about 20, but we're gonna go back about 40 feet beyond the back of the building, and then do gravel in the back, so that way where we're driving and everything, we're not dragging gravel for eventually when that road is paved out front.
Okay, closing the public hearing, you can still talk. Any other questions? Is there a motion concerning the conditional use permit?
I'd move to accept the conditional use permit.
Doug moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
Julie seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And this one, city council too, next Monday?
Yep.
Okay,
Next Monday.
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now this is a discussion, so this isn't a public hearing.
Correct.
Okay?
So this would be listed under other items.
What is it, number 4?
This
Four.
actually,
Four on the back.
yeah, number 3, that was the change, it's going to 25th, and the 4th was already noticed for that.
Do you
And
need a motion to table it though?
You did that in your, when you did
Did
your
the
motion
agenda.
to change the agenda. But what's going on, what is the deal with 4?
4, continued to May 25th public commission meeting, planning commission meeting.
Also 3 and 4.
Yeah, both, 3 was added to that, 4 was already printed that way on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're in other items, discussion on zoning ordinance requirements, Dietrich Construction. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll kind of paraphrase here, and please jump in if I miss anything, but we were approached by Detroit Construction to review some of our zoning ordinances, and they wanted to have a discussion with the planning commission on 2 items. They had sent a letter that was in the packet, and I can pull that up here. Basically, the letter stated that they would like the planning commission to examine requirements for paving access drives. And the second request was the planning commission discussion on clarifying the requirements for outdoor storage and a contractor yard. So Detroit Construction had stated that with the road being gravel, they were requesting to discuss whether they could opt out of paving their driveway over concerns that they would be dragging gravel back onto their paved driveway.
Hold it right there. It's in the zoning ordinance, right?
Correct, yep.
We don't have the authority to change that.
Right, that's why this is discussion only.
Okay, but we can discuss it all we want, but we're not gonna have any effect on that because we don't have the authority to change that.
Correct, and this was, this information was provided to Dietrich Construction that in order to effectively change any requirements, it'd have to go through a text amendment of the zoning ordinance to change it and go through a formalized process prior to the city allowing for them to opt out of paving the driveway area.
Yeah, so 4 months from now, if we even wanted to do that.
Right, right.
Okay.
And then another point that was made, I believe, is that they didn't want to invest in paving the driveway when they didn't know where the height of the road would be. And I don't remember the other points, but I feel that was.
That one I would
just a-
suggest you check with the city engineer to see where,
Yeah.
We don't have it yet out there,
I know.
and that's why it doesn't bother me if they only pave up to the right of way. Because when we come through and pave the road, we'll pave it back to the right of way on both sides. As a matter of fact, Public Works doesn't want them out to the edge of the road either, because then the blade hits it and they have just a mess with that, so they don't have a problem with it being back either.
In other words, they pave everything but the apron kind of thing?
Pave everything up to their property line, and then from there on out it's gravel, and then we do that when we do the street project, typical of any other street.
Yeah.
Would there be any concern there, Jim, if we held it back even further? And the reason I say that, I'm not concerned about vehicle traffic, I'm concerned about truck traffic, as far as, you know, if we're talking holding back 10 feet.
As long as, it'd be your responsibility to fill that 10 feet. So we would only go to the right of way, and then anything beyond that would be on you to do it. I
Okay.
guess
Those are sidebar discussions as far as I'm concerned, because all we have is the ordinance says this, and if you make other arrangements with the city staff no, you're gonna pave the area that requires paving. But the apron area, the kind of he's discussing with, again, that's outside of our purview.
Yeah, and city staff perspective is we're not really interested in changing the ordinance. We think that it keeps a nice aesthetic appeal to the site. When the road does get paved, if there was gravel, that gravel would end up being on the paved road surface. That's kind of the basis for why we have that in place to begin with.
Yeah, no matter what you work out for the apron or whatever areas, in the end, when the road's paved, it's all gonna be. Okay, next.
Okay. The other point was requesting to distinguish between outdoor storage and a yard. The applicant submitted a site plan. They had some concerns with the language. They were wondering if that would mean an enclosure of the entire outdoor storage area, and I'll bring up the language. So this is what's found under your design review. When we get these commercial and industrial applications, there's two items under design standards. One is outdoor storage, the other is contract yard. Staff has really struggled with this because of the close similarity in the language between both of the requirements. Our interpretation is that they're kind of one and the same because we have no criteria to distinguish one from the other. The language that we really look at up here is enclosed area. To us, that means circling around the whole perimeter of wherever that outdoor storage yard is. Of course, we try to be reasonable. If there's a building and it ties in with the building, we consider that enclosed. And it kind of states up here too that with that enclosure that you can make it, give it the appearance of being integral to the building. So we kind of thought that was acceptable. When this came in for design review, my understanding was that we were kind of looking at this, instead of using decorative fencing material, they could use architectural screen walls. We had no guidance on what that was. The Planning Commission gave specific information on what that would look like in terms of the...
Didn't we do trees?
Yeah, then we approved the trees.
Correct, it was
And we
pine
laid out how they
trees,
work.
10 feet tall, at mature height. I think it was 10-foot spacing,
Okay.
2 rows. So I left it up to the applicant whether they wanted to use all fence, all trees, or a mix. I thought they were all acceptable. But I don't know if you could elaborate on what, here, I'll bring up the language.
Now, actually, based on the language up there, I would think they would want it to be a contractor's yard, not outdoor storage, because the outdoor storage, the enclosure, see, opaque decorative fencing material or architectural screen walls, that'd be prettier and more expensive. Okay, so what are we asking for here?
I guess they'd like
Okay, go ahead.
clarification.
What we're trying to clarify is when we had that meeting and we had the discussion of the trees, our motivation at the time, we felt Horace wanted to beautify from the street, screen from the public view, and not, you know, the interior side yards and the rear yard. And so we'd like a clarification on that, and we're hoping that what Horace is looking for is screening from the front as viewed going down the road, and that we don't have to do the entire yard. Because it's a large site.
What's staff's interpretation?
Staff's interpretation was what was already existing. So for example, Dean Mullen's site down over here, he has his whole yard enclosed, no opaque fencing. So we thought that that was the intent to carry forward, that any site, whether it was outdoor storage or contract yard, because that's essentially storage of materials and equipment for that business, we felt that that would all be, need to be screened in an enclosed area.
What's AJ got?
I'm sorry?
The concrete guy up on,
AJ Construction.
yeah, he's got a concrete. Okay.
I think with the language that, you know, we are seeing as public, everything in both of those is from public view, and so a lot of it is our definition of what, clarification of what public view is, and, you know, the side properties, do they meet, are they considered public view? And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and staff's interpretation of public view, that the zoning ordinance doesn't give us specifics, so I've just borrowed what's common practice in the metro area, which is if you have a person of average height standing on public right of way, looking at the site, whether you can see those items that are supposed to be screened. In terms of anything on the roof, we'll usually look at an elevation and just look to see if the facade or the wall is taller than the RTU or not. So if it's taller, we consider it screened. If it's not, then we require additional screening to hide that from view. We've decided, or I've decided even here, it just get too complicated if we're measuring tangent angles and trying to figure out what could be seen, and people obviously have differing heights. So That's just kind of staff's common sense interpretation of those requirements, and that's typically what we look for when we get these site plans. So, I don't know if you remember the post office, they had a loading area. They had trees between the street and the door of the loading area. We consider that screened from public view. Or a dumpster, you know, usually it's enclosed in a fence area with opaque fencing. We consider that screened from public view. We've also looked at other examples where some applicants have put those things behind a building. And we've considered, like a dumpster, we've considered that dumpster screened from public view. But when it comes to a yard, basically we've looked at examples like right down in the corner here where the whole yard is fenced in with opaque fence material.
Questions, comments?
When you mentioned the yard on the corner, is that surrounded by commercial or is it surrounded by residential?
Commercial.
Cause I just always run into where it's more of the security measure that if a business chooses to secure the rest of their yard, that's pretty typical of a luxury item, not so much a requirement. I just didn't run into where we had to have entire yards closed in, even in Fargo.
We don't plan on really having anything outside other than occasional flatbed trailer. That space, that we're talking about screening, you know, it is really nothing more than having semis have enough room to get a straight shot into the building. So there is no plans of having materials outside. You know, I think, we've been in the city of Horace for, well, since like 92 or 93, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with where they're at, but we didn't have junk outside. So, I guess personally, when I interpreted the last planning and zoning commission meeting that we had about this building, my interpretation of that, you know, was that the trees were good, you know, everybody was satisfied that we could use trees. And then, you know, we're kind of encountering that we still have to fence the backside. And our question there is, you really can't see that from any public view, if we're calling the public view the frontage road along 17.
Can you call up their,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
their plat, their location?
So, oh, sure.
Give it to us on the same map we were looking at the other ones on.
Okay. So it'd be this property right here. This side right here.
So your plan is on the west side to have trees? Okay.
Block the frontage road
Yep.
essentially.
And so I think you probably answered the question, you're not concerned about security back there, like cause if you did store stuff there, then you have security issue and safety issue of kids going through there or hurting themselves, that kind of thing.
We don't plan on leaving anything outside, so.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
I have a question, this is Sarah. Do you have access to the plan that we looked at the last meeting where we were talking about the trees? Sarah?
Yeah, I can see if I can pull that up.
I distinctly remember discussions about multiple rows of trees, and I was under the impression that that was going to be on the sides and the back, but I'm trying to recall the specifics of that, and maybe someone else on planning and zoning can refresh or jumpstart my memory.
No, trees or something that was discussed. I don't know if it was the side and the back though. I recall just the front.
I just recall the front for vegetation.
So what you have in your minutes, discussion was held on various aspects of the development proposal, including allowing for the option for landscape plant units to provide screening for outdoor storage and contractor yards. Commissioner Sarr moved to approve the building permit application with the following conditions. Where fencing is required, 2 rows of 10-foot tall evergreen trees are required with 20-foot spacing between plant units, and the second row will have plant units centered between plant units of the first row. Second, a row of deciduous trees are required in the front yard with 30-foot spacing between plant units. Seconded by Commissioner Hochhalter. All commissioners present, vote was 4-0.
So we have deciduous trees and evergreen trees?
Yeah, the deciduous trees, I believe, are in the front.
Front of the
front
office.
of the, in front of the actual building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the evergreen trees would replace the fence around the outdoor storage yard.
Okay. So we approved that and now we're trying to go back to the fence, or help me understand what we're trying to do here. Are we trying to remove the fence altogether? Just remove the trees and replace with fence? Just put trees in the front? I need some clarification. What are we asking for here?
You're trying to get rid of the screening on basically the south and the north and the east.
Yes.
Not just screening, just the whole fence, right? Or you
Well,
put
even the
fence.
trees.
Yeah.
The
Or
screening could
trees.
be trees or fence by what we just talked about.
The
What
trees
we're trying
stay
to
in the
do is
front.
Screen from the
Correct.
public.
There's no way
right-of-way,
that
which
those
would
are
be the
going.
road.
Correct, but you're trying to get rid of, I mean, right now it's been approved to do trees along the south, the north, and the east, the evergreens, in replacement of the fence, correct?
Mhm.
So you'd like to get rid of that entirely
Just along
and not
the-
have to do any trees there, no screening whatsoever, and the only screening would be on the west.
We're just trying to understand how to read this right. Are we supposed to do the bulwarks, or are we screening from right of way, which would be Highway 17? In which case, then we wouldn't be required to do the interior side yards or the rear.
Right now, you got just that first building, and then you got the other 2 buildings in the future, right?
First 2 buildings.
Are the first 2 buildings?
Yep.
I would go along with the thing, I mean, I think the thing states that it almost has to go around it, you know, enclosed, like the staff said, but the project isn't completed. I don't know if, I think as the last building is built, I think then completed at that time and give them a break on, you know, maybe just doing the south half down to that second building, and then forget about the back part for now or something, and then maybe give you a break on that, and then when you do the back building, then we could finish that and have that as part of it. Give them a break, and when they do the last building, then they could incorporate that whole thing, and that would be a kind of a compromise, I think, and it would help them in the process.
When you say that, Kim, you know.
We don't do compromises.
Well, the building isn't built, so they don't have the need to enclose that one at that time, so I'm just saying that for them to complete their total project, we screen the side end, and since they're not gonna be parking a lot of stuff out there, then they finish off that when they do the last building, so it'd give them some time to complete the project.
Actually, the question we're addressing is, does a contractor yard get enclosed or not? That is the question. The contractor yard get enclosed or not?
So if you go back to the wording, in my mind, it says enclosed. And the reason I say that is there are 2 separate sentences. It says public view, but it doesn't say enclosed. It says, no, there. It says, by placing outdoor on the storage on the opposite side of the building from, you place your storage on the opposite side of the building from the main public frontage street. Or placing outdoor storage in an enclosed area. So that's either or. I mean, or it's like, you have to do one or the other. And then it says, all storage, outdoor storage shall be fully screened from view. It doesn't say public view there, it just says view through the use of an opaque, decorative, blah, blah, blah. The public thing is just saying you're locating it away from it. It's not saying the fencing is from the public view. That's my interpretation. Just my opinion, everybody else can have their opinion.
That's mine too.
That's fine too. The word all pretty much says everything.
That's the problem, yes. Not the problem, that's the crux of it. Are you, okay, Julie, haven't heard from you yet.
That's how I read it.
Okay, is that what you need, Barrett?
Well, it's just a open discussion, and then, you know, if there were changes or different interpretations, I was looking for guidance on action to move forward, but yeah, I just, you know, the zoning ordinance states that my role is to interpret the code, but as you can see, it kind of jumps all over the place, so it's kind of what's already in place, kind of what the community intent is. I feel like I got that here tonight, that basically you would like to see full enclosure around outdoor storage yards.
That's what we just, that's what we just required of the last two conditional use permits, in fact.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
So we have a track record.
And we still have the option of doing either fence or trees
Yep.
in the method that we
Yeah.
talked.
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got plenty of room for trees there.
I love trees. Trees are gonna be a little spendy going around the whole thing, but,
So's a fence.
oh yeah, I
Trees will
know.
actually be less expensive for you.
Are we good with this?
Okay, do you have anything else to discuss? That was
Nope.
kind of the general discussion. Okay.
Would we be allowed to go, like Kim had suggested, and go as far back as what's built now and finish the rest when he does?
Is the yard still gonna go in? The whole storage yard will go in, I'm assuming, correct? And the only thing that won't be there was the building?
But I'd like to point out that the building permit application has been approved, so whatever's on that application is what we expect to get built, but if you do have modifications, you could resubmit, we can reevaluate if you want
Yeah,
to
it's
shrink
just
that down.
that the potential future third building hasn't been applied for, it's not part of the permit, and so the whole back of the yard is kind of
Yard.
Well,
placeholder kind of stuff. So-
my interpretation of that is if you have a storage area and that's enclosed, it doesn't have to be your whole property,
Just the storage area.
just a storage area, so that might help you.
Yeah, if you say it's outdoor storage, it says all outdoor storage shall be fully screened.
And
If
I'd
it's a
note that,
contractor's yard, then the whole thing the whole yard has to be, right?
I would note that-
That's what we're all saying?
that staff, when they look at the site plan, that's what we look at, whatever's identified as the yard. We look to see that it meets the requirements, but
What-
if the applicant would like to go back and shrink the yard, they certainly could. But they'd have to resubmit a new building permit application, have that reviewed.
Okay,
So if we do wanna make the change to the trees, which we do, we have to resubmit the new building permit?
Not the trees, just if you wanted to shrink the yard. You could still do the trees, and if you shrunk the yard, you could do a smaller area with the trees.
It wouldn't be an addendum to the permit, it'd be a new permit.
It'd just be a resubmittal,
Right.
so, right.
It's not a whole start over kind of.
No, you just resubmit the plans, show your changes and follow.
It's just,
Yep.
a new building permit kind of
Oh,
scared me a little bit.
sorry, I chose my words before like being a resubmittal.
okay,
That's fair, we'll talk.
Yeah, that sounds good.
good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next,
Okay, next item on the agenda, I was asked to bring up the topic of the future land use map, specifically, if I remember correctly, 64th Avenue, is that correct?
yes,
Okay, so what you kind of see here on the map, the orange is considered compact development. It's supposed to be higher density residential housing. The yellow area is low density residential. And then this brown area is considered urban. Urban states that it's supposed to be varying forms of different housing types, but have an urban appearance with some neighborhood commercial. So in 2023, the county's gonna build a roundabout here. Veterans, 45th and 76 is going to be built this year. And we're currently working on a corridor study for Veterans Boulevard. Fargo has shown plans that they're gonna build Lake Fargo over here.
they are building Lake Fargo.
They're in the
Correct.
middle of doing it.
Correct, yep. And they anticipate having really dense commercial and residential uses along this corridor. So I think there's been some discussion on whether we should review this future land use map, if we want to make any changes. We actually spoke with Lori Engineering, Matt Hoff, HS Investment, just to get some input. Kevin Christensen owns all of this land down here. He's known for single-family detached and commercial development. HS Development, they'll usually do like different, a variety of different housing types. And some commercial kind of in our Lakeview area to the south down here. And when asked for input, they said that they felt that they would be put at a disadvantage because the capacity for commercial is limited in the city, and they felt that if we were to allow it along this corridor, it would take those opportunities away from what our comp plan wants for the downtown area, or the new downtown area. So that I just figured I'd share that input. But as staff, I do see some opportunities here when you have a roundabout infrastructure here. This is already calling for commercial. I'm kind of bothered here that there's really no buffer between this urban and low density residential. I think that should definitely be changed just to kind of reflect that. And I don't think staff would be really opposed to having this area consistent as mixed use. And mixed use states that you can allow for both commercial and high density residential. You can either have it side by side in separate buildings or in the same building. So I don't think we're really looking for that urban form in this area because it really hasn't been identified in our comp plan, but I could see some more intense uses along this corridor. And the reason that I bring that up is because when I was kind of looking at our roadways, the comp plan kind of lays out future arterial roadways.
Hold that up.
Let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger.
Because Doug doesn't have his glasses,
Sure.
and mine aren't good enough.
I was gonna say, blame it all on Doug.
It's far enough away, I can read it, I can't read it in close, so
Yeah.
I'm good.
So as you can see, some major corridors like County Road 17, Veterans Boulevard, the west half of 76th Avenue, and then this little portion right here that we're looking at, 64th Avenue. These were all designated as mixed-use arterial. And it states here that they act as crosstown links and business corridors. It states it should have on-street parking to allow for economic activity and promote business activities. So I thought when comparing the future land use map, so it's gonna let me scroll out. Future land use map designation, it just didn't really seem to align with our future vision of this roadway. So I think it's good food for thought whether we'd like to see a change to kind of make this mixed use and maybe add some compact over here for a buffer for low density, or you know, maybe kind of up the ante on this corridor and make it a more intense land use to kind of maybe supply business to Deer Creek Parkway over here.
So clarify what your term of compact is, because that's pretty broad, because I'm at the city commission meeting,
Yeah.
you know, when you got an R6, that's very high density. So what do you consider compact? I mean,
Well, so I have to be careful when I say compact. I've worked in other cities where our lot sizes are ginormous in those communities. I think this community has a different perception on what compact development is. I think the community views like an R4 zoning type more compact, where it allows for attached housing with 4,000 minimum square foot lots, or a single family detached lot that's like 8,400 square feet. With R6, obviously you get a little bit smaller, you get smaller setbacks. There is a lot of pushback against that when it butts up against low density residential, and it's kind of been an issue in this community. You know, obviously I think we'll have to address that with buffering in the future in terms of zoning ordinance, but I think what we could do to avoid a lot of those issues is just looking at the big picture, just have some sort of transect of density within our future land use map so that we're going from really dense down to less dense. And then hopefully we can avoid those conflicts and meet the community's expectations of what's compatible development or what falls into the context of that neighborhood.
What is that brown area again?
Urban.
That's described as urban?
Yeah, and then the description.
And what is the definition of urban?
It says a variety of housing types with an urban form. That could be widely interpreted. And it says neighborhood commercial uses. So I'm thinking maybe like a.
14 units an acre.
Pardon?
5 to 14 units an acre.
So you're looking at multifamily.
Okay,
But, what the form of that building is, I'm not certain whether that be a mixed-use building or a suburban apartment complex.
okay.
So when I look at this, and just from being at the commission meeting the other night, and you have these properties where you've got 1.5 acres to an acre, and we're putting compact next to it, or high-density housing next to it, we're gonna create that type of meeting every time it comes up, just because it's not a softening for that development. So they're gonna be irate over that. And I was thinking about that quite a bit after I left there. An R3 probably is considered a compact, but an R3 is a good medium buffer for housing, for developments like that. Most of these people that moved out here moved out to a community that, with zoning, and at that time it was larger lots purchased, thinking that they'd have space. I know things are changing, and I know things have to change because this is where the development's gonna come. But there has to be a way to soften that so that it's not just all in their face right away. It has to be able to pull away a little bit.
I'd point out, unfortunately, we don't have a future land use designation. That's kind of the in-between. And I've had these discussions with the city council. I think what would be appropriate is using the zoning ordinance to figure out what that buffering is, or being aware that when these subdivision applications are submitted, that we look for more of that transition and we get more of that direction from the planning commission and the city council on what that looks like, whether it's a certain lot size type or preferred zoning designation. I think that would help with that transition process a lot better. But I think what we really don't want to do is, this is our policy, this isn't our comp plan. So our development community is looking at this to see where the community wants these developments to occur. And that's what kind of concerns me, because I feel like we can work with this, but this is an extreme. And I just see a future political or battle ensuing here if this were to develop into a larger lot development. Now I'm thinking with the current property owner, that's not likely, but you never know, property changes hands.
No. One of the questions I have is his last Southdale third has the zoning was changed to mixed use up there along County Road 17, correct?
Yep, so Southdale Third ended here.
Yep.
On this line. This was zoned MU, and these are all single-family detached. And then Christian Boulevard was gonna come through here like this.
Yes. And Southdale First
Southdale First is farther south.
is still R5.
Yeah, the property owner has decided to keep that zoning designation for now.
And that's, is that Jordal?
I believe so, yeah.
And what's he think he's gonna put there?
We've talked to Chris Mack on numerous occasions, and I think we ran into Jordal, and I think it's kind of undecided at the time.
Well, it may be, but our R5 is not workable for anything practical.
Not at all. It's just not feasible.
Yeah, R5 it's basically, the way that was written was to basically keep apartments And we worked a year to change R5 and couldn't get it through city council, so we gave up.
Yeah.
The mixed use
Yeah.
is,
Better.
the mixed use, you can build an apartment house on mixed use. The only stipulation is first floor to second floor is 15 feet. It can be converted to commercial.
Right.
Otherwise, you're gonna have some real high ceilings in your apartment or a lowered ceiling, whatever. But the,
So the question at hand with that urban, I think that if 64th there is gonna be like a major road, right? Because it's going over and it goes to the highway and there's an interchange there, isn't there?
they're gonna
Right.
get the interchange there
So-
before
so-
76th ever does.
Right, so what I agree, I'm concerned with that brown area. I'm concerned with the yellow that's butting up to, I don't know, what's Deer Creek, Fargo or West Fargo?
Yep, so
The-
Fargo's right over here.
Yeah, those,
That right there, that, on 64th, that's north of 64th there, that's yellow. That butts to Fargo.
yeah, those are all
Is Deer
suburban
Creek, Fargo or
residential.
West Fargo?
Deer
Fargo?
Creek is Fargo.
Okay, Fargo. And if that's a major road, who's gonna wanna build a big huge house along a major road? I think that should be changed to maybe some sort of mixed use also. And even maybe to the south of it a little bit, or high density, one or the other, cause I agree with Doug, I don't like seeing, I mean, that's where we had the whole argument with the people on 17 that have their little private road that have the 4 lots there or 5 lots there?
Yeah.
And then we, yes, and then we ended up that yellow section there. No, what was it? No, we haven't changed that. I thought we changed that orange to be low density.
We didn't, we talked about it, but we couldn't because it was in play.
Oh, because those people are so. Okay, this is being recorded, so I have to watch
Okay,
my language.
because it's just
They're
us
so
here.
upset because of all the Fargo stuff there, that's part of the reason that I thought it should be good to stay that way, and then when you cross the road, you could go to more,
Correct.
cause you're across the road, it's
Right.
not somebody's backyard being abutted with more high density. So I thought we were gonna change just that one little orange square there, and then south of it, it could be orange.
Yeah.
We were gonna do that, but we couldn't because it was still in play. In fact, it went to city council last week.
And would they vote on it?
They have tabled it for now, and they're having discussions between the property owners and the developer. But I will tell you what that butterscotch color up there does, is it puts the city in the position that they probably can't refuse it. The development that we turned down,
We tried.
we tried.
I tried, or
The-
we tried.
Yeah.
The
all
issue
of us.
is that it was labeled as compact development.
Yes,
The developer bought it in theory as compact development,
yep,
and therefore he's trying everything he can to get it in there,
Yeah.
because when you're talking $410,000 a unit with 40 units, you're gonna fight it.
Right.
You're gonna get it in there.
I think we're gonna see it there. I don't know what the outcome of the discussion is gonna be, I'm just saying, I think we're probably gonna see that there.
So staff would like to stress, this is a policy document that people are making their investment decisions on.
Right.
If there is any inconsistency or anything you would like changed, you would want to be proactive and change that before it gets to the point where someone does submit an application. So I think having regular discussions on the future land use map is healthy. We're
Yes.
gonna be looking at other challenges down the road with the diversion project. I still don't think we've decided what we wanna see along the diversion, whether we want that to be low-density residential commercial, industrial, or whatever the preference of this community may be, but we have gotten a lot of requests from developers to build along the diversion channel once that's put in the future.
Are you talking on east and west, on 100th?
Yeah.
Because didn't they move that back now? They moved it south?
We told them that right now probably wouldn't be a good time politically to talk about it. Let the dust settle a little bit and then come back.
The dam is about a quarter mile south
Yeah.
from
yeah.
100, that's it.
Yeah. So I think the city has higher priorities to look at, but I don't think it would hurt to start having these discussions early, just to kind of, get it in front of you, start thinking about it.
So all this property is pretty much still zoned ag.
Yeah.
Most
I mean,
of it,
it-
I can
This-
bring it.
Yes.
Nothing's been rezoned as far as I can tell on,
No.
from the existing map
Mhm.
to the future map. It's still, a majority of it, I should say, is still zoned ag.
Yes.
Right,
So,
right.
so just because you have a map that says future land use map, does that hold us to that? Or because it's not rezoned yet, does that give us the option that we can maybe start changing some of that because of what's wanting to come in, so that we can have an opportunity to soften some of those areas?
Well, I'll answer that, and then Lucas, if you
I
have
was gonna
anything to
say, I think
answer,
our
but.
lawyer should
So,
weigh in on
basically, when staff gets an application, we use that policy document to evaluate whether that fits in with the community vision or not. Then it's up to the planning commission to recommend to the city council whether they agree with the staff or not. And then, if you do not think that it does apply, you have to state specifically your reasons in that criteria listed in your staff report where you don't think it falls within. And that is our legal basis for accepting or rejecting these applications. So if you have someone that comes forward and you reject the application on the basis where it's not stated under one of those criteria, then you could put the city in a position of liability. And Lucas, I don't know if I missed anything there, but.
No, that's pretty good coverage. A lot of what Barrett has in the staff report really covers planning commission, city council. But at the end of the day, you do have a lot of discretion, and you don't have to check all those boxes. But I mean, it definitely helps. But know that the planning commission and city council both have a lot of discretion in the decisions that you do make. And typically, my advice is always just base it off of something, whether that's in the ordinances, comp plan, anything like that. So, not sure if I answered your question, or just gave a.
So yeah, I think
legal
Doug's
response.
question was the comp plan with the future land use designations we have on there. Is that considered a matter of record, and if we go against what we have, if we say it's
So my
low,
interpretation
high
is that's just
density,
a
and we
guide.
say,
Yep.
your
My
interpretation is
interpretation
what?
is it's just a guide. It's a guide for the planning
Okay.
commission, it's a guide for the city council.
Okay,
If you
so-
deviate from that, that's the decision of the planning commission, and typically you're gonna have reasons as to why you're deviating from that. My whole thought of the comp plans are they're just guides. What I rely on mostly is the ordinances. That's where I
Right. Well, they're concerned to put it in their purchase agreement.
concerned, but
Well, if they're concerned about the zoning, to make sure that that's what they can get, they would put in their purchase agreement that if they can't get that, then the purchase agreement is null and void.
No,
for
for
just
instance,
this one property you're saying, or?
So-
Yeah, when you're purchasing,
Good
maybe
Oh,
they're
yeah.
gonna.
But no, I think that absolutely what happened was, I think
Correct.
for Deer Creek, that we
Absolutely,
guys
it should be
are
done now.
referring to,
Yes.
Well, no, I'm just referring about to anybody.
Because
Yeah, we
there's-
should be doing that.
That Deer Creek issue, I think
it's like kind of
the
obvious to us
developer
that
paid
we
too
don't
much
like
for it.
Anything that abuts,
You can't get
anything that abuts
unless they do this high density.
I just wanted to mention too, this meeting is being recorded too.
Yes.
So, if
I
there's,
have bit my tongue a couple times.
yeah, so if there's something that you would not like to share with the public, I would recommend not sharing it at this meeting at this time.
Yes.
But somehow it got put in as the high.
Now, one of the things to keep in mind is the same people who are developing Deer Creek Estates, I think, have an option, or they have the land south of that.
where it's shown in yellow
where it's shown in, no,
that I talked about?
no, that yellow stuff you see there is all developed. On the north side of 64th, that yellow stuff is all developed.
Okay.
In fact, one of them is one of place that we split into 5 lots. But it's still yellow. It's the Butterscotch area there, just south of Deer Creek Parkway.
Oh, the road, yeah.
Yeah. The area between 64th and Deer Creek Parkway, my guess is they're looking at developing the same kind of thing they just did up in, only with higher density than what they're doing up in north of, in Deer Creek Estates. Because that's their typical development.
So. It's brown right now. It's not yellow. The
No,
stuff
this
you said
isn't-
that,
this
the
isn't-
5 lots that.
Oh,
no, sorry, to the east of
Those.
what you're discussing.
Oh, yeah, those all have houses on them.
That
In fact,
white area, but what about the brown between?
The brown, those all have
Those
houses
have
on them.
houses too?
Yeah. See them?
Yeah. I
No.
can't believe they wanna stay
No,
there.
go down to my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You see where I live?
Yeah.
Okay. Show the future land use map for my house.
Yeah, your future is commercial, I believe, or mixed use. It's bright pink.
It's
Yeah,
a
that-
community focus.
Community focus.
What does that mean?
You're supposed to pay more attention to the aesthetics, and you're supposed to have it's kind of the gateway to the city in terms of commercial uses. I believe it also allows for high-density residential.
Are you gonna remodel?
Whose definition is this? Is
It's in
this
the
the
comp
city
plan.
or is this
It's in the
from?
comp
It's in
plan,
the comp plan,
And this is which comp plan or?
2045.
the new one.
Starts on page 23.
Who from this city was on that comp plan? Was there anybody from the planning and zoning on it?
Yeah, but the other thing you're gonna find is there was large community input.
Yeah, I remember that, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pin you, I just was trying to
Oh.
make sure that we had some sort of, because it's a lot of stuff when you do those, I understand,
And then
so
it all came
probably
through,
wasn't.
and then it all came through planning and zoning, if you remember.
I think I do recall it coming
Yeah.
through, yeah, and
We got some things fixed.
We
So
did, but we
you're
didn't
gonna
fix it
do-
all, I
yeah,
don't think.
that community focus could create some of the same issues along County Road 17, because now all of a sudden you're taking larger properties, and some of them are pretty large, and then you're putting high density again. You could put high density right behind it again. So you're gonna create a lot of the same issues.
Well, the good news, bad news is the land north of my house is currently already, if I'm correct, it's already zoned suburban residential. In other words,
Commissioner Wendell, I just wanted to point out that this is kind of the transect in terms of density. So it starts out as rural residential, suburban, which pretty much covers our whole city. Then it jumps up to compact development where we see the R4s, R6s, then up to urban, commercial, mixed use. So I think, maybe we could look at compact development maybe a little bit differently. It does cover the ranges of R1 to R4. It does include R6, but when we get these applications for subdivision plats and rezoning or zone changes, maybe if we had some direction, staff could evaluate these more in line with what the planning commission and the city council would like to see. As of right now, I feel like staff is kind of flying blind. We're just kind of seeing, does this stick? Does this work? If not, then we learn from that experience when we see new plats come through.
So,
well, one thing we have done in the past with R6 successfully, for instance, Cub Creek, we negotiated is the best way to put it. That we don't have cookie cutter lots, and we have not done a development yet with lots all at the minimum. And we aren't allowing, in R6, we are also not allowing lots to all be at the minimum width.
Yeah, I know.
And we've
I don't know how much longer luck's gonna hold out on that.
That isn't luck, because no, it isn't luck, because we now have a track record of doing that.
Oh, okay, I suppose we have a precedent.
We have precedent set, and so.
I mean, because that was more us, like, the people were willing to negotiate with us, that I just feel like, you know, the next people that come along could press it, but there you go, we have some precedents, so maybe that'll be helpful.
You know, my impression was at that
Um,
point, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
At that point, we didn't have any policy in place, so it was kind of, you know, trying to feel out what the community wanted, what our preferences were, but once we had this put in place, then it was really definitive. It was really easy to identify, you know, what we wanted to see, but of course, this is very ambiguous. I mean, we're still sifting through the details and trying to figure out what those are. And we're trying to accomplish that with the new zoning ordinance, and so hopefully we can.
That's what I was just gonna say, is what about the new zoning ordinance, and how, when we change that, then this is gonna change too, because you're actually referring to
Right.
the R1 through R6 and all that, and if we change what that designation is, we're gonna have to update this to match, correct?
Correct, that could
So-
potentially occur.
So, we can't get the new ordinance done fast enough, is my opinion.
Yeah.
You have that correct.
So, I think that's on your list,
In
is it,
case-
to update us on where that's at?
Yep.
Yeah, he'll, in case you're not up to what we're talking about, we have contracted for a new total chapter 4.
Yeah, we wanna revamp it, cause there's a lot that's,
We have about 130 pages
No,
now or
good.
something like that. And when we get our 500 or 600, we may have things covered better. Okay, we probably should leave this behind.
Okay.
so, so I just wanna ask one question, so you're asking us to kinda look at that, and then would we have an opportunity to update this now, or would that only happen with our new ordinance then?
No, actually, this can be updated at any time.
Correct.
So do we wanna try to consider updating some of that? I mean, all of us kind of agree that it's a little hokey, so maybe we should be, I don't know if we do it tonight, or have it set for the next
Okay,
meeting that we
no,
review it?
we can do it tonight because this doesn't require a public hearing.
Actually, I think it does.
I think it does.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
It states under the code administrator activities that I'm
It's under
supposed to keep.
Northwest Century Code.
Right.
Oh, okay, because
We
it's,
can jump in on that, that does require a public hearing, just to let people know, but this is a living document, and so I'm one of the ones that feel strongly that it needs to consistently be updated as we get new growth in the city. And there's a few things that I wanna touch on specifically with the most recent thing that came to council with the Deer Creek Parkway proposed addition. You know, button up big lots to small R6 isn't working, guys, and so we need to take a look at that pretty closely and make sure that we're taking that into consideration. Same thing when you've got commercial corridors and you got big residential lots, you know, you guys nailed it on the head, so let's take advantage of having an opportunity to make some proposed changes as the city's growing, so that this map better fits our needs and ongoing is updated, so that it doesn't become outdated and all this work goes by the wayside.
see, one of the things I think we're gonna see over the next few years is, while we have this view of the 76th Avenue commercial corridor, and yeah, we may have some stuff there, but I will also tell you that unless my land sells to somebody, and I plan to die there, my land blocks the whole thing, because the streets are based on the streets are all based on the street that goes through my living room, Lakeview.
Yeah.
We can move your house.
Yeah, start talking about multiple 7 figures before we start getting
Okay.
there.
Okay.
No, but
so-
what I'm saying is 76th Avenue interchange, while we are gonna have paved road Next year, we will have paved road on 76th to 45th to 52nd. This year, we will have gravel road
Right.
all that way.
And construction.
What's that?
And construction first.
And construction first.
Right,
Yeah,
so I think kind of what you're saying is 64th could probably get hit first for development over 76, is that?
well, what I'm saying
Part
is,
of what you're saying?
well, what I'm getting at is 64th, we see Lake Fargo going in.
Yeah,
Fargo has plans up there and they're moving them.
There's also a school.
They're also looking at the school that we have currently programmed in our new one up there. They're talking about moving that over, getting rid of that land and moving it over.
Fargo.
Yeah,
So the lake's going in, so do we have all of what they're doing there that abuts all that, drain 27?
They
In
have,
that area that we're trying to look at on updating ours, so then we can make it kind of the whole flow? Can you bring that maybe to the next meeting, and then we can look at this, and then we all kind of think about it, and we can say our say, and then we can make a plan, and then have a public meeting at the next one? So like
ideally,
2 from now, or?
ideally you'd want that to occur, but they don't have any formal future land use map in that
They
area right
don't,
now.
okay.
I think
Thought they
at a meeting 6 to 10 months ago, I took a quick snip picture of an online meeting.
wait, see,
I
So
love
I think
snip.
it's their unofficial future land use map, and when
Yes.
I lined it up, it did show kind of like a commercial multifamily corridor.
the other thing
Okay.
is the Veterans
So-
Boulevard study hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, it's still ongoing.
And that Veterans Boulevard study,
Well, so what do you think we should do, Russ? Do we wanna try to, at the next, do we wanna how far ahead do we have to advertise for a public meeting? Should we advertise not for the next meeting, but 2 meetings from now, and then at our next meeting, we figure out kind of what we wanna propose? And then
I
we
would
present it at the second meeting
I would
from
actually
today?
suggest before we start advertising for a public meeting, let's decide, let's get to the place that we have an idea what we wanna change to.
Right, I just
because
don't
it-
wanna push it too far out, because if we're already talking about, we already have one person in play, we don't want somebody else to buy the land and already try to develop it, and then all of a sudden we wanna change it and we can't.
Well, I
I'm trying to
think,
expedite this.
does
change.
Kevin Christensen have
So-
all that land up to 64th?
Correct, I believe he owns these right here, I'm not sure if he owns this, but.
Yeah,
he's
no.
got these.
No.
Now,
Okay.
Kevin Christensen actually
Maybe.
in his very first overall proposal for that area, he had commercial along 64th.
Okay.
And at the time, I said, no way, that's all gonna happen on 76th. And then it turns out that 64th is getting the interchange and 64th is,
Well, see, things changed on us, so
Yes.
maybe we need to change.
I think so.
As
But
part of that process,
So-
we would notify property owners, so we wouldn't be blindsiding.
So how do you wanna make the steps to change that we can do this rather quickly? The only reason I'm saying 2 meetings from now to set, how far in advance do we have to say a public meeting?
Once each week for 2 consecutive weeks is your notice typically.
So we would have to, at the next meeting, have that first advertisement out already for the
No.
meeting a month from now,
Oh.
correct?
No, the notice is done once each week for 2 consecutive weeks, so the notice gets.
Right, so if we don't do anything tonight and say, and then the next meeting, we say, oh, 2 meetings from now, we want it to be public, I wanna have 2 meetings from now have it public, so that when we meet the meeting right after this, that we put all our plan and our noodle and get it all together.
You just tell us
and get it
what
ready.
date you want to
Well-
have a public hearing, and we'll take care of the notice.
I would advocate for staff sanity, that we kind of discuss and draw out what we want first before we move forward with that. Otherwise, I feel like it'd be rushed, and we'd be rushed to make a decision in order to make that a public hearing.
Well, I thought the whole
and
point
take
was we
action
wanna
on
try to
it.
get this done soon.
Okay,
Okay.
we do, but I also don't wanna have a public hearing
Okay.
before we're sure we're ready.
So can you have that done with the staff before our next meeting, so then you can present to us what your recommendations are, and then at the next meeting, can we have a discussion here with us to try to, at least, maybe if it's easy, we can all say, yeah, we agree, or at least say, yeah, we think so, and then agree at the next meeting?
I just
Sorry, I'm
wanna
trying
see
to-
some of those colors change.
I agree,
Yeah.
but
Well,
instead of
if
just
we agree-
talking about it, can we plan on
if
how
we-
the
if
next
we
steps
look
of
at
when
it-
we wanna do this, and put some time? If we don't put some dates to this, I'm afraid it's just gonna keep sliding.
You are
Sorry, I'm
correct.
a project manager, I'm trying to get
You
you
are
to get some
correct.
milestones and some dates down. So
Yeah.
could we do that?
I
Well,
used to
the-
do PERT program.
I'd be more than happy
Okay,
to
do whatever.
keep it on track, maybe set it a month out instead of 2 weeks, because that'll give staff more time to work on it and create something we can get
No, I
discussion.
think you guys could do it in 2 weeks, so we have it at the next meeting. What do you think? No, I mean, couldn't you, I mean,
Okay.
I guess I'm afraid my proposal might not be agreed upon, and there may be some discussion that would
Yes,
result in that.
exactly.
But I mean, if you
well, could we
wanna
make that
it
a target, and if you don't make it at the next meeting, then we can push it out to the next one? So could we just try to, I've found if you try to tell, you'll use whatever time I give you. So I think 2 weeks from now, you should bring that from the staff. That's my opinion. Anyone else?
Work,
I would agree.
work tends to fill the time available.
Yes, agreed. So I think
Yes.
if we say the goal is for you to bring that to us in 2 weeks, then if you don't meet your goal, you can explain to us why you didn't, and then tell us when you're going to give us the goal.
I can already explain to you why I didn't, but that's okay. Okay,
I'm trying really hard here. You guys are not helping me at all.
No,
Does
just-
anybody else want to help? Come on, Doug. You look like you're agreeing with me.
And
Well-
have a pretty good idea of what we'd like on the agenda. I don't know if all the maps and whatnot will be updated, but I think that's some really good discussion, and, an agenda with dates for targets is
Yeah, that's what I'm
easy
looking for.
to put together, along with some concepts of some key areas. Is
What I
that
would-
reasonable?
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's-
trying to ask for.
what I
Yes,
would like
Sarah.
to do
It's target
is
areas.
start setting the timescale at the next meeting.
I guess what staff really wants is kind of narrow down what you want. What's our scope here? Is it just 64th Avenue? If it's 64th Avenue, do you want to see mixed use? Do you want to see compact? Do you want to see a transect?
I say you should focus on 64th Avenue. I thought that's what we just discussed. That corridor is what I'd like to see happen for you to bring from your staff at the next meeting.
My
Is that
feeling
too
is
much?
that that's the one we're probably gonna be moving on soonest.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
I would
saying the
agree.
whole thing. We said this is a living document and we can keep changing it, so can we just look at the 64th corridor?
Sure,
For
but
now?
I'm more than happy to do that, but I guess, so I'm not spinning my wheels and I have 10 different maps. I'm just kind of wondering, what do you have in mind? Do you want to see commercial? Do you want to see high-density residential? Do you want to see a mix?
Mixed
I'm just trying to
use.
feel out what the consensus is here.
I'd almost like to see the
Yeah.
mixed use, just from a standpoint of that.
Mixed use?
Well, that's just me.
That's
I-
me.
one of-
I agree.
Because that seems to be our most, useful zoning right now. Am I looking at it wrong?
I would agree, but I guess my question as staff is, not only in terms of land use, but in terms of form, I would see that as a deviation from our comp plan because we didn't really imagine an urban form along the corridor, but it does allow for land uses where you get a larger variety, and it does have some advantage with lower parking ratios. In terms of tax revenue, I mean, the
But
city.
The other thing is though, when we do that, buffer it from low-density housing.
Okay.
And if you have to buffer it with, duplexes for, whatever would give us a duplex.
Well, the only tools I have are these future land use designations.
Yeah.
So what would you look at,
Yeah,
like,
that's hard.
compact development as a buffer to low-density residential, or?
Hey,
Compact is so open because you're already, your L6 is in there, or R6 is in there, and that's the hard one because that's what they're gonna push for.
Right.
And if it's in there, they're gonna push for that because that gives them the most return on their dollar. And if I were a developer and I were building, that's what I would push for.
Can we put,
So should we
Can we put
address
duplexes in the
compact
mixed
development
use?
in the definition and pull R6 out of it? Would that help solve some of this?
Well, I see two paths forward. Either you modify the definition of compact development, or you
Right.
create a new future land use category, which is a
Right.
lot of discussion. So
Right.
that's where I get concerned with that 2-week timeline, cause
Well,
I
one
feel.
of the things, it may be simple enough to do, between suburban and compact, we stick another one in there that is R1 through,
Three.
I'd have,
Oh,
probably
okay.
R3,
Yeah.
I'd have to review
Yeah, it'd have to
R4.
be through 3, cause R4 and R6, that's when you start making your R4 is where it starts making your change.
Yep,
So,
3.
I would say it would be an R3. And we, you know, in my opinion, those should be, that should be your buffer, you know, that should be your softening of some of these larger neighborhoods with the larger lots. It softens on its way out. And then you can start in with your compact.
yeah, we can call it.
And the nice thing is then you got a slow softening of your community, of your communities, and you're starting to put the compact in areas that really aren't established. So it doesn't jump in their faces right away, and it makes it easier to develop those areas than it does the areas that are surrounding it.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me, I'm in full agreement. The question is how, what tool do you use? So, if you'd like me to go forward with a new future land use category, we could certainly give that a shot, but.
Switch to try and do that first.
Yeah.
Well-
do that.
But I would caution, this is a policy document, so I wouldn't want to breeze through this
No.
and do it quickly. I would really want to have some really good discussion on all the details, just so that we don't end up in situations where we get development we don't want.
Well, the other
That makes
thing
sense.
is, I've seen some things happen quickly in the past where we didn't understand what all the possible interpretations and ramifications were.
Well, this is totally different than what I was talking about, because you're not adding a different thing in, so yes, it's a different viewpoint. So yes, we need to take the time to address it, because you're adding,
Yes,
so I agree.
But if you don't change it, you know, when you pulled that diagram up, and when you look at compact development, it was so broad in that spectrum can be in compact development.
yes.
The only thing that wasn't in there was was an R5.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it just,
No, I'm all for trying to create another one in between or changing the compact, one or the other. And yeah, that'll take a little more time than just trying to change the actual zoning that we have listed there. But
and
can we start working on that and create some sort of timeline? Can you come back next meeting with some sort of timeline of what can be feasible and how we can get that done so that
I just wanna
we
make sure
keep
you're
it
still
moving
alive
along?
back here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, how long would it take to put that together, a new classification?
New classification, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to have a discussion, I can create some maps, I can create the text language for the new designation. You're probably looking at about 3 to 6 hours of my time. If it was a full-blown public hearing, putting a staff report together, public notice, that's just gonna add more on it, probably another 2-3 hours.
Well, I think we should start with the, your part first.
Right.
And if you bring that and we may,
change.
or we may change, or we may like it, and at that point, you're gonna have to do the staff report in order for the public hearing.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So I'm just thinking in terms of using time effectively, I think what I'd like to do first is bring a proposal, kind of feel out where you
Yes.
sit on it, whether you like it, what changes you want to
Sure.
make, and then come back with a final product and then move forward with that.
Okay.
It just seems like it's more productive.
that.
So you're thinking 3 meetings from now, we could maybe, if things went well and there wasn't a lot of discussion and difference of opinions,
Yeah.
that could feasibly be a public?
See,
Okay.
the other thing is, once he does that, we get a new color, and we may start splashing that.
Agreed,
Yes.
yeah. I think that's what Doug's
Yeah,
asking
that's,
for
that's what
here.
I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then my question would be to this commission, if we're doing a new zoning ordinance, would we wanna hire the consultant to redo the future land use map? Because that's a lot of discussion. Or would we just take it one at a time?
Let's take it one at a time.
Yeah.
Let's get this first and then we'll discuss that. Let's just eat the elephant one bite at a time,
Yeah.
shall we?
And sitting in
I,
that,
I'd like to comment here that I really appreciate the open discussion on this. Council has been put in some pretty awkward situations just in the last couple weeks where we know what Fargo is doing, we know that corridors have changed, but this map is not updated, and so we're going against the grain. And I like the idea of taking a tiered approach, a stepped approach. I appreciate the urgency put on it, but I think we can do this reasonably, and I think there's a way that we can get to a point where we, over the next 2 or 3 meetings, get to a public hearing and then potentially take this to the consultant and let them work through the detail of it, if we can give them a concept. Does anyone disagree with that?
Well, I would just advise though, the future land use map is not in the scope of their contract.
No.
But it could be a opportunity for them after the zoning ordinance is completed.
However, I think we're gonna want some changes to this map on our own before we get there.
I think so.
I think it's
We do a few.
critical that we move, that
I
we
don't
make.
think we can wait that.
Kind of like what we've been doing with the ordinance, you know, we found some real like, ooh, we can't wait to get our whole new ordinance because that's gonna take 12 months, we need to do something else. So this is our Band-Aid approach until
Yes.
we get to
Yes,
something else.
right,
okay,
my biggest concern is when you get into some of these developments, it's not just, they can say it's gonna look great, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna buffer, and they're gonna do all these things. But what's it gonna look like 15 years down the road?
bingo.
And you've got areas that have been there for 30 years, and they still are nice communities, and then you're plopping everything in there, and 15 years down the road, you've got something that had an HOA, but that went away because it was too expensive, and nobody took care of the properties, and now you've got those spots in town that are gonna be not very appealing anymore.
Yeah, staff has had that discussion internally pretty extensively. Not only to landscape areas, but drainage ponds, to sign easement areas. I mean, the list goes on, and there's a lot of literature that discusses that, talks about that, and the city has a lot of options, either whether they purchase it or another HOA takes it over, or it becomes a problem with the city. So staff is aware of those issues, and we do look at those. And if you do have any comments on those when those applications come forward, you do have the ability to provide comment on whether you want to move forward with that or not. So, for example, we do have some plats that have came in the last 10 months where they have HOA lots. If you don't want those, we could certainly bring that up, and we could reverse course on that and
Right.
discontinue those.
Some of those HOA lots, as far as I'm concerned, they should be tacked on to the lot right next to it. So instead of, so somebody gets a little bigger lot than he may have wanted, he has a little more to mow, but it gets it out from under falling into the city eventually. Can we move past this one now? Okay, let's go to accessory structures.
Okay, accessory structures. So,
We thought we had the definitive answer on this and everything was taken care of. Not so.
all right, so this is kind of interesting. We've already looked at accessory structures. We did a zoning ordinance update, but we still have a lot of inquiries from the general public on a frequent basis for property owners that own properties in excess of 1 acre and are currently under our zoning ordinance. The zoning district restricts the size of the accessory structure. So if I remember correctly, right now it's SRRE is 3% of whatever the acreage is of the lot. R1 through R4 is 840 square feet, and R6 is 500 square feet. So just out of curiosity, I started looking at our neighbors, and I found some interesting differences. They have kind of a similar structure, but then they have like an exception section where they'll talk about lot sizes that exceed an acre are allowed to have larger accessory structures. So just looking at Fargo here as an example, I'm not saying we have to be like Fargo, but just something to look at. You know, they kind of have it broken down from 1 to 2 acres, 2 to 3, and it goes in increments of an acre, and they keep on adding 500 square feet. And then I looked at Moorhead. Moorhead basically has something a little bit different. They said if you have an acre, we take your building footprint plus, I can't remember what it was, 800 and something, 680 square feet. And that's the max size of your accessory building. If it goes over an acre, then you get your building footprint plus 1,500 acres. I looked at West Fargo, same thing. If you have one of their larger zoning districts, you're allowed up to 1,600 square feet. Dilworth, basically, if I read it correctly, maxed everything out at 300 square feet. So a little bit of variability there. But the common theme that I noticed with all of our neighboring communities is that if you had lot sizes that were an acre or over, that you were afforded more square footage of an accessory structure. So I was just kind of wondering if, well, the city council directed staff to initiate discussions with the planning commission to look at these examples and to discuss if we wanted to take on something similar with an exception for larger lot developments where we would allow for larger square footage of accessory structures.
The interesting one to me up there is number 1. For lots under an acre, the maximum building area of the sum of all accessory structures shall be limited to the sum of the ground. So you have the size of your dwelling plus the garage, the attached garage, plus an additional 680 square feet. In other words, if you've got 1,800 feet between your garage and your house, you could have a 2,480 square foot accessory building.
I just wanted to point out, it says for the low density zero districts, that'd be comparable to like our SRRE.
Okay.
Aren't a lot of these based on square footage of coverage?
Yeah,
Yes.
why can't we figure that way?
No.
I mean, based on square footage of your footprint of
Of
your
the
house
lot.
and then your square footage.
When I did the math, if I were to take SRRE and do 3% of an acre, it turned out to be like 1,306 square feet. So in comparison to our neighboring communities, it is a little bit smaller.
But you're comparing it on a percentage of the lot size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the percentage of the coverage size. Of course, I suppose if you did that and somebody built a 1,500 square foot house on a huge lot, their percentage of their outbuilding could be larger.
Right,
A lot
and
larger.
we do have max lot coverage. I can't remember off the top of my head, I think it's like 25%.
Now,
SRRE.
before we made the change and put everything into the particular zoning district, back when it's under accessory structures, if you had a 1 acre lot, don't care what the zoning was, what the residential zoning was, you could still have your 3%. And the reason that came up was we have many R1 lots that are right in that acre area or bigger. What the question I actually have is, what do they have for their smaller residential areas, like the equivalent of our R1 or R2? What?
It was kind of all over the board, but the structure was the same, smaller in size, setbacks were closer to the property line, height restrictions were, maximum height requirements were lower. And that's typically what you see nationwide. So the way our accessory uses are structured right now in our zoning ordinance is pretty typical. It's not something unique. The only thing that I think is missing is we don't have anything that addresses larger lot properties.
Now, again, because we put everything into the residential zoning, we took it out of the accessory structures portion as, except we now have the chart in there for setbacks, correct?
Correct, yep. So the way we have it structured is that we have each zoning district listed out, and under permitted uses, it'll state accessory
Yes.
uses, and then it'll show what the cap is on the square footage of that structure. And then we have a separate section, accessory uses. It talks about the other dimensional standards pertaining to height, setbacks, what was it called, bulk height, and subdivision where you have a remaining accessory structure on the lot. So
I'm
I
curious.
found it really, really odd when I started receiving phone calls on this, that in Horace, we were tied to zoning instead of square footage, and that we had several instances, and I can think of 8 or 9 off the top of my head, where people were in that R1 to R4 category, but were limited to 840 square feet for a building. And I thought, there's gotta be something a little more commonsensical to this. So let's take a look at neighboring communities and see if there's something we can do to allow people to have a structure that's a reasonable size in comparison to their lot.
Yeah, so from my perspective, the way our zoning ordinance is structured, I wouldn't put it in each separate zoning district. I would have a table, just so you get all the information in one place. And then there's different approaches. We could take, if we wanted to move forward, we could take the West Fargo approach. One size fits all, it's capped off at whatever that size is. Or we could take the Fargo approach. As your lot incrementally gets bigger, your square footage is incrementally gets bigger. There's no right way to do it. Obviously, it would be our preference on how we want to do that. But if interested, I think, in my opinion, it makes more sense to tie it to the size of the lot because you're worried about the context of that site. You don't really want to fit a square peg through a round hole with every single property that has that zoning designation.
I like the chart. We fixed some of our stuff with that chart.
Mhm.
I would like to just see if you can expand the chart. And the question I have is, I don't know if we should necessarily start at 43,560 square feet for a size. In other words, if you've got there are folks who have a half or a 3/4 acre lot that could stand having a 40 by 30 building on it.
We would agree with you because in Sunnyside, there's a lot of R1 zone properties that are like 0.97, 0.95 acres. So
Yes.
if you start at 1 acre, you cut off a whole
Let's see,
bunch of.
and what I'm trying to avoid is people coming in for, well, can we get a variance for that? No, you can't, kind of, but maybe you can. I would rather just have a chart that spells it out, but goes below the 1 acre. Does that make sense to you?
Sure.
That totally makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as those chart,
Does that mean I'm gonna have to add on to my garage?
Yes, you are required.
so you like this?
Well, so 40,000 square feet is what, 75, 3/4 acre?
No, 43,000, whatever,
Right.
is an acre, so
Right,
that's
so
almost
what's-
an acre.
That's almost an acre. But you're saying half acre would be too, so
I-
you're
I-
saying
I-
21,500,
Yeah,
whatever,
you start,
whatever half of
yeah,
33.5 is.
starting down there, starting someplace down below an acre.
Maybe at a half acre and above?
Or do like a half to 3/4 and then 3/4 to 1.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
We've
mean,
got
I
a
think
lot of
he's
those
saying,
half acres.
yeah, we
Yes.
could divide it up in there too, but I think he's
Yes.
saying the very bottom being half acre, not 1 acre,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of someone who's almost got 10 acres, 6,000 isn't big enough. Never mind.
I would agree.
Well, it may not, I mean, we just need.
Yeah.
And when you say accessory structure, I mean, is that these sheds they're putting up, is that different then, or?
We really have no clear definition of accessory structure. Our interpretation right now is basically anything with 4 walls and a roof.
And you're not living in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So in this chart, you'd have to go smaller
So
because
hopefully
there's
that's
a
something we're
storage shed.
addressing with the contractor with our new zoning ordinance. So that you could call accessories and what those are, and then maybe it'd be, outbuilding or some other term,
Yeah, but,
shops or whatever, I don't know.
Would you consider an accessory structure a permanent structure or a movable structure?
Well, see, that's the other thing you have to address too.
Kind of
right?
depends, because right now, we don't require a permit for any accessory structure under 120 feet, and we know that those can be pushed around on the lawn without a permanent foundation. So in the future, we could
It's that
ask
5
for
inches of
certain
concrete I
size.
got under, that makes it hard to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Moorhead, they stipulate that at 200 square feet and above, you have to have a permanent foundation. But we don't have anything like that in our language at this time, though.
Well, if we do this chart, I think we should have that in there for those smaller lots, so they can go to the chart and look at all that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay. Have we beat this one to death yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Community development updates. Oh, by the way, Sarah, did you hear all this discussion?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Okay, that works for you?
That's an absolutely excellent start, and
Yes.
that's exactly what I wanted, just a little more of a common sense approach, and I think we can get to the details in the next meeting, but I think this is an absolutely excellent start. Thank
As
you
I
all.
told you the other night, we don't do common sense, we do regulation.
I just think we got a lot of need in our community, and because we do have a lot of people that have a sizable amount of acreage, being limited to 840 square feet doesn't make sense to me, I guess.
Agreed.
Okay. Just some quick updates. I always want to make you aware we do have tools online. This is our zoning map. It's on our website. Oh, that's not the one I wanted to talk about. Sorry. This one first. So I try to keep this map updated just so that you're aware. I rely on the county for the information. They have a GIS department and they offer all of this data online. So I've put it together. I update the zoning. If you're ever curious about the zoning of a certain neighborhood or parcel, unfortunately, I'm dependent on the county to complete the subdivisions, but usually it gets done within about 4 to 5 months after being recorded. So we try to stay up to date. Same with the road center lines. They don't always follow the subdivision. I think this one's missing right now, but in the near future, we'll definitely add those on. But yeah, if you have any questions from the public and you want to know what that zoning district is, it's available online. If you just go to our website, government, community development, and I have all of these listed: zoning map, future land use map, applications, planning commission deadline, land use ordinance, comp plan, and then link to permits.
That chart that was shown, was that on the future land use map? That showed what definition of each below it?
No,
That's not a
that'd be in
comprehensive
the comprehensive plan
Comprehensive
2045.
Yep, it starts on page 23. So just click in here, and then you can find 23 on the sidebar here. It's a
Yeah,
big
what makes me
document.
confused is that 2045 comprehensive plan has a whole bunch of definitions of types of zoning that don't even exist in our zoning ordinance.
Yes.
So that's what's confusing. So that they should match each other.
You should have seen their first draft.
Those should match each other. So anyway,
You should have seen their first
yeah,
draft.
I know.
Yeah,
I
that's-
understand. Baby steps, we'll get there.
Yes.
that one, and then you have one that, when you clicked on it, it had what type of use each one of those specifically had in it, like compact development, it showed.
Oh, it had kind of like the chart.
It had the chart
Oh,
with it.
yep, if you scroll
What's
down.
included?
Is that in there
Yep,
too?
Yep, it's at the
Okay.
end.
Yes,
There.
that one,
Yep, page 26.
yeah, okay.
So, okay, and then last one, I just wanted to kind of give an update on our zoning code project. It's still progressing, so basically what the consultants have been doing ever since, I think back in March, they started doing an audit, so they're looking at our zoning ordinances right now. They've had some brief conversations with me just to kind of look at things big picture. What they want to do is this, meet with the planning commission and the city council. I think it's the second week in June. Commissioner Wendell, I don't know if I gave you a calendar invite yet, but I'll check. And at that time, they're going to present their findings of their audit. And I believe they're going to go over a preference survey. Also, when they're in town, they want to do kind of like they want to visit our city and drive around a little bit just to kind of get a feel of the context that they're working with. So what they've done in the meantime is they've prepared a press release. It's been submitted to various media outlets. Unfortunately, none of them have published it yet. I don't know why they're sitting on it. But in tandem, they also created this website. And on this website, this is linked to our city website. It just kind of goes over our project, talks about what we're doing, kind of gives an explanation of what the product is. And then Commissioner Wendell, if you're not aware, this is kind of a really new, innovative, and kind of exciting way to do zoning. It's not only a written document, but it's connected to a GIS map. So like the zoning map I just showed you, in the future we're going to have a map. If you click on the parcel, it's going to bring up a link to the code, and then it's going to bring you to the relevant section of code that it's zoned to. So it's really neat. It's supposed to be really easy and intuitive. But what I wanted to bring to your attention today is we also have this survey. I encourage everybody to fill it out. I encourage you to spread the word to residents, developers, anybody that's interested in zoning in our city, and complete this. And I believe they're going to provide the findings of that at our meeting in June. So if you could get the word out, I'll try to bring this to the city council.
And is that the link you gave to the Home Builders Association?
Correct. And the way you find it on our website is Government New Subdivision Zoning Ordinance Project. And then we have a link to the website right here for zoning.
Can you post something like that on Facebook and kind of show the link to it so that if people are following Horace City, they could do that?
I talked with Bobby Pact. She's our staff person that handles the media. She said she was going to. I'm not sure if it's been done yet or not, but the
Yeah,
intention
maybe it has.
is to do it.
Okay.
But I'll check into that, make sure that got completed.
Because the easiest way for me to try to communicate is I'll just take that and then share it if you're already going through all the hard work of creating all those links. Why reinvent the wheel, right?
Sure, yeah. So, but yeah, I was just wondering if you had any questions about the status of where we're at, or the new website, or,
No, this would be good.
okay.
Okay,
But other than that, that's it.
do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Turn off the recording, would you?
What are you
Yeah.
sleeping?
The